This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. It's Friday, February 21st, 2025. I'm Clayton Neville in for John Trout. Here's what's coming up on America in the Morning.
A promise from new FBI Director Kash Patel.
We're going to come after the people in the media.
I'm Rich Johnson.
The longest-serving Senate party leader in American history says his career will end after this term. Sagar Meghani, Washington.
Snowy roads led to hundreds of crashes throughout Virginia and North Carolina. I'm Haya Panjwani.
We'll have the details of two teenage girls arrested for threatening to attack their high school with guns and pipe bombs.
On Wall Street, stocks are coming off an ugly sell-off and lots of volatility. I'm Jessica Ettinger.
President Trump says he backs an idea to send some Doge savings to American citizens. Ed Donahue, Washington.
President Trump throwing his support behind congressional efforts for a federal takeover of the nation's capital. Ben Thomas, Washington.
All ahead on America in the Morning. One of President Donald Trump's most loyal followers and one of the most controversial nominees is now on the job. The Senate confirmed Kash Patel to be the director of the FBI. Correspondent Rich Johnson has details of what turned into a very close vote.
Patel was confirmed by a Senate vote of 51 to 49. Two Republicans, Alaska's Lisa Murkowski and Maine's Susan Collins, voted no. But former GOP leader Mitch McConnell, who had voted no on some other Trump nominees, was a yes. Senate Democrats were united in their opposition.
Kash Patel, mark my words, will cause evil in this building behind us, and Republicans who vote for him will rue that day.
Rhode Island's Sheldon Whitehouse at a pre-vote rally outside FBI headquarters. California's Adam Schiff offered even stronger words.
In the first Trump administration, as we are seeing in the second, you rise to the level of your sycophancy, and no one is a bigger or more dangerous sycophant than Kash Patel. This political hack does not deserve to be in this building.
Missouri Republican Senator Eric Schmidt, however, is looking forward to the changes Patel hopes to bring to the Bureau.
What Kash Patel is going to do is expose hypocrisy within the FBI, going to expose the corrupt behavior and get them away from working for a party and get them focused on working for the American people.
On his X page, Patel said he's honored to be the 9th director of the FBI. But on Steve Bannon's War Room online show, Patel noted how staffing the second Trump presidency is very different.
The one thing we learned in the Trump administration the first go-around is we got to put in all America patriots top to bottom.
Patel also said the Bureau won't be going after so-called domestic terrorists, which he claimed was just an excuse to target January 6th rioters and other Trump supporters. As for some of the people he will target,
we're going to come after the people in the media who lied about American citizens, who helped Joe Biden rig presidential elections. We're going to come after you. Whether it's criminally or civilly, we'll figure that out. But yeah, we're putting you all on notice.
I'm Richard Johnson.
He's considered one of the most consequential Republican senators of his generation and spent 18 years as the Senate's GOP leader. Washington correspondent Sagar Meghani reports Mitch McConnell will end his storied Senate career after this term.
To the distinguished members of this body, I've had the privilege to lead, and I remain deeply, deeply grateful. Today, however, it's appropriate for me to speak about an even deeper allegiance and even longer standing gratitude. 7 times, my fellow Kentuckians have sent me to the Senate. Every day in between, I've been humbled by the trust they placed in me to do their business right here.
The longest-serving Senate party leader in American history says his career will end after this term.
Mr. President.
Senator from Kentucky.
Kentucky sent Mitch McConnell to the Senate 7 times.
Representing our Commonwealth has been the honor of a lifetime. I will not seek this honor an 8th time. My current term in the Senate will be my last.
On his 83rd birthday, McConnell took the Senate floor to announce he'll serve out this term and retire, starting the epilogue on a storied legislative career. McConnell helped forge a conservative Supreme Court and led Republicans through tax cuts, impeachment trials, and other fights. But his power waned as Donald Trump took over the GOP, and McConnell's brand of Reagan conservatism and foreign policy, plus health problems, left him out of step. Even as the president criticizes Ukraine, McConnell still favors helping it. And with nearly 2 years left in his term,
I have some unfinished business to attend to.
Sagar Meghani, Washington.
Wintry weather in the east buries some and causes travel issues for others. We've got details when America in the Morning returns after this. The work week coming to a close with a little bit of relief, at least as far as the wet weather goes across the United States. Still going to be cold and windy in parts. Let's turn to our meteorologist, LaTroy Thornton.
The latest Santa Ana wind event does look to persist into the day today, and after gusts in many places held in the 30 to 40 mile per hour range around Southern California yesterday, today does bring a continuing risk for gusts as high as 50 miles per hour in the typically favored SoCal locations. Just as with yesterday's first day of the event, the fire risk should remain low compared to some of the high wind situations from earlier this season, thanks to ground that is still carrying some moisture from rain earlier this month. For the rest of the West, a new storm brings rain to mainly Washington state today, although there can be some snow mixing in over the Washington Cascades and into the northeastern part of the state. Rain also reaches the northern parts of the Oregon coastline as showers extend inland toward the I-5 corridor by the end of the day. Farther away from the coast and into the interior, snow continues for a time in mainly eastern Colorado and parts of western Kansas, where 1 to 3 inches of storm total snow can be expected from the latest storm in the region. Any higher totals of perhaps 3 to 6 inches are more likely from around Denver to the adjacent areas of I-25 to the south and I-70 to the west. There can be some rain at times over South Texas ahead of a freezing drizzle threat into central Texas later tonight, but otherwise the cold is much of the story from the plains eastward, as highs continue to be 15 to 30 degrees below historical averages for another day, before a warm-up takes shape for many through the weekend, even into the start of next week. There can be some snow showers for a time downwind of Lakes Michigan, Erie, perhaps Huron, and especially Ontario, with flurries over the high ground of West Virginia. In Philadelphia, I expect a good deal of sun with windy conditions mainly early and a high of 37. For Brownsville, Texas, temperatures start the day near daily record lows with some cold rain and drizzle, the high just 46. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
Remember to follow us everywhere you get your podcasts: Apple, Spotify, Amazon, and YouTube. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. The wintry weather that dumped a foot of snow in parts of southern Virginia and North Carolina left police dealing with over 1,000 fender-benders shutting down roads and highways and leading to dozens of injuries. Correspondent Haya Panjwani reports the heavy snow also led to power outages.
Snowy roads led to hundreds of crashes throughout Virginia and North Carolina, including a series of crashes on an interstate highway involving more than 50 vehicles. Officials are continuing to ask people to avoid travel to allow crews to work on roads. The North Carolina State Highway Patrol says it responded to nearly 1,200 collisions around the state. Virginia State Police reported that there have been nearly 500 crashes since the storm began. An Arctic air mass is bringing widespread record-breaking cold to the United States, and forecasters expected some locations to experience their coldest temperatures on record this late in the season. I'm Haya Panjwani.
Police near Houston say that 2 teenage girls were arrested after allegedly planning an attack on a local high school. According to Spring Branch ISD police, the 2 students, a 15-year-old girl and a 16-year-old girl, were arrested about half an hour after authorities were made aware of the alleged threat.
We have a very close relationship with the FBI. And so when I got the call from one of the agents, I knew right away by the tone of its voice that this was serious, that we need to take immediate action. The information that we were provided had very specific details.
Spring Branch Independent School District Police Chief Larry Bainbridge spoke with KPRC TV in Houston.
This is something that would have been carried out had they had the opportunity.
The FBI field office in Houston says the teens were plotting a mass casualty attack. The alleged threat involved the girls using guns and placing pipe bombs at the school. wrapping up the work week with Friday Business when America in the Morning returns after these messages. Don't go anywhere. Friday Business brought to you by Fisher Investments. Fisher Investments is a fiduciary, always putting clients' interests first. Learn more at fisherinvestments.com. Here's CNBC's Jessica Ettinger with Friday Business.
Wall Street opens this morning after an ugly day for stocks yesterday. The Dow tanked 450 points, and that was after a little recovery.
Bent a little bit, did not break. Each of the last 8 trading days, so basically since the beginning of last week, there has been an afternoon rally, meaning we've closed a good deal higher than a midday or a morning low.
CNBC's Mike Santoli. Some investors did some profit taking yesterday after Walmart warned that profit could be lower this year with inflation and the Trump tariff agenda. Walmart also continues to lure in wealthier shoppers with inflation up now 4 months in a row. It grew its consumer base of those who make $100,000 a year or more.
Walmart continues to gain share across all incomes, but specifically higher income. This is a new Walmart, and we've gotten so much better at managing inventory. Look at Walmart. Their inventory is up 3%, their sales are up 5%. So by nature, they're controlling the controllables. They are not allowing for these big discounts.
SW Retail Advisors Principal Stacy Widlitz on CNBC. Slightly more Americans applied for unemployment benefits last week than the week before, and more than expected. Economists are waiting to see if any government firings show up in the big monthly Labor Department employment report as the Department of Government Efficiency slashes thousands. But there may be a reason why it doesn't.
We obviously won't see it in the next employment report because these layoffs happened very smartly right after the reference week. That's a very clever way to try to keep these things out of those monthly reports we see. As long as people find a job before the next month's reference week, before the week of March 12th that contains the 12th, they won't show up at all.
The University of Michigan's Betsy Stevenson on CNBC. CEO confidence hit a 3-year high. The latest Business Council survey shows 2/3 of the CEOs asked plan to maintain or increase their staff this year, but CEOs also see a lot of trouble ahead.
Someone used to say to me, where you stand depends on where you sit. And what industry you're in, I think, drives how you see and feel the outcomes of the Trump administration. You know, when we ask the CEOs what are some of the risks they're worried about, you know, one of them is around tariffs. And so there are lots of businesses that put tariffs down as a risk factor. And the other thing, obviously, is immigration, which, again, you know, is a double-edged sword depending on how you run your company.
Business Council Vice Chairman Roger Ferguson on CNBC. On today's watch list, we get existing home sales numbers for January. Wendy's teamed up with the Girl Scouts to introduce Thin Mint Frosties on menus today. The Grapefruit League season opens this afternoon. The Yankees host the Rays in Tampa, Florida. New in theaters, Neon's horror film, The Monkey.
There's more talk about potential dividend checks surrounding Doge from President Trump, including some pushback. We'll bring that to you when America in the Morning returns on the other side of this. The Internal Revenue Service on Thursday started firing employees in a massive layoff ordered by the Trump administration. It was estimated that between 6,000 and 7,000 federal workers will be given pink slips. That's 7% of the roughly 100,000-person agency. The Washington Post reports the majority of job cuts came in the enforcement and collections section of the tax service, and many of the laid-off employees were part of a recent hiring surge that was meant to improve service and update technology at the agency. The cuts also come as tax filing season is now underway. There's been some pushback from conservative Republicans over Donald Trump's plan to create dividend checks for the American taxpayers using money gained from Doge government cutbacks. Correspondent Ed Donahue reports.
President Trump says he backs an idea to send some Doge savings to American citizens. Speaking at an investment conference in Miami, the president praised the work of Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency.
There's even under consideration a new concept where we give 20% of the Doge savings to American citizens and 20% goes to paying down debt, because the numbers are incredible, Elon.
Doge has already led to thousands of federal government employees being fired or laid off. On Air Force One, the president was asked about a Doge dividend.
I love it.
He says this could lead to even more savings.
And also would give an incentive for the taxpayer to go out and report things to us where we can save money.
This all started with a suggestion on Musk's social media platform. Ed Donahue, Washington.
He's already threatened to take over the Panama Canal, buy Greenland, and make Canada America's 51st state. Correspondent Ben Thomas reports President Trump says he wants the federal government to take over the city of Washington, D.C.
I think we should take over Washington, D.C., make it safe.
President Trump throwing his support behind congressional efforts for a federal takeover of the nation's capital.
I think that we should run it strong, run it with law and order, make it absolutely flawlessly beautiful.
Speaking to reporters aboard Air Force One, Trump complained about crime and homelessness.
Too much crime, too much graffiti, too many tents on the lawns of these magnificent lawns and this tent.
Adding,
we got to take care of the homeless, but you can't have that in Washington, D.C. You know, when they come over to see me, like Macron is coming and the Prime Minister of UK is coming, and all these people are coming over to see me.
Congress already vets all D.C. laws and can outright overturn them. Ben Thomas, Washington.
America in the Morning for Friday, February 21st, 2025 is produced by Jeff McKay. I'm Clayton Neville in for John Trout, and this is Westwood One. This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. I'm Clayton Neville in for John Trout. Here's what's coming up this half hour.
The Senate has narrowly confirmed Kash Patel as the FBI's next chief. Sagar Meghani, Washington.
Vice President J.D. Vance and Elon Musk take center stage on the first day of CPAC. I'm John Stolnis in Washington.
Whatever it takes. I mean, it's safety.
Striking correctional officers' fear for their safety. I'm Bob Brown. I'll have that story coming up next.
The Texas State House debates school vouchers and concerns that Hamas is reneged on their hostage swap.
Have you been censored online? The FTC wants to know. I'm tech correspondent Chuck Palm.
The director of Longlegs takes a stab at a Stephen King adaptation in theaters now. I'm Kevin Carr.
We'll be right back. Waking up across America with a more dry forecast today. Still going to be windy, though, in spots, and still some concerns out west. To sort it out, here's meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
Large zones of high pressure centered over the Midwest and the Intermountain West will ensure dry conditions for the vast majority of the United States today, and entire regions such as the Southeast and perhaps the Southwest may very well turn out completely dry today. However, there are a few areas where the weather won't be quite as nice to end the week. For starters, the Northwest is in line for the latest round of precipitation as the next in a string of storms arrives, with periods of rain and drizzle reaching western Washington and the far northwestern corner of Oregon and lasting at times for much of the day. The rain should make it to places such as Seattle by the afternoon hours, with some snow mixing in over the Washington Cascades. Rain and snow showers are more likely over northeastern Washington, with a shower or two also around the Portland, Oregon area by late today. Outside of there, a dwindling risk for lake effect snow is expected for western lower Michigan, areas near the Pennsylvania-Ohio border, and even into central New York through the day today. These snow showers may last the longest for areas downwind of Lake Ontario, where places such as Syracuse, New York could pick up an additional inch of snow. Some snow is also expected to continue into this morning for parts of central and eastern Colorado, as well as western Kansas, where a storm total of 1 to 3 inches can be expected. However, there can be a zone of 3 to 6 inches of snow around the I-70 and I-25 corridors in Colorado, including downtown Denver. A weak storm over the western Gulf brings some rain and drizzle to much of South Texas, but the more impactful weather concern for that area could turn out to be the risk for some icy conditions developing at night due to freezing drizzle or even freezing fog around I-35 from San Antonio to Waco, thanks to moisture at the surface interacting with cold air still in place. That's the weather across America. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
Remember to follow us everywhere you get your podcasts: Apple, Spotify, Amazon, and YouTube. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. Despite 2 GOP senators voting no in a sometimes rocky confirmation process in the Senate Judiciary Committee, the full Senate by a narrow vote confirmed Kash Patel as FBI director. Washington correspondent Sagar Meghani reports.
There can never be a tolerance for violence against law enforcement. And anyone that commits an act of violence against law enforcement must be investigated, prosecuted, and imprisoned. Protecting the rights of the Constitution is of the utmost importance to me and has been every single time I've taken that oath of office.
The Senate has narrowly confirmed Kash Patel as the FBI's next chief.
We have 51 yeas, 47 nays.
2 Republicans joined Democrats in opposing Patel, a Trump loyalist.
When left to his own devices, Kash Patel has proven himself to be a wildly vindictive partisan. When around Donald Trump, Kash Patel has proved himself to be a sycophantic suck-up.
Rhode Island Democrat Sheldon Whitehouse.
A political and national security disaster if confirmed.
And number 2 Senate Democrat Dick Durbin, who said before the vote he couldn't imagine a worse choice.
Mr. Patel has been open about his plans to dismantle the FBI and seek retribution. His directives as a private citizen have already thrown the Bureau into chaos before the actual vote. Mr. Patel will be a political and national security disaster if confirmed.
Majority Leader John Thune says Patel's the right one.
Mr. Patel will lead the nation's primary federal law enforcement agency at a critical time.
An agency Patel has fiercely criticized and one in turmoil. The Justice Department's already forced out several senior FBI officials and demanded the names of thousands of agents who investigated the Capitol riot.
At the heart of their opposition is the fear that he'll act like Democrats did when Democrats were in power.
Sagar Meghani, Washington.
The annual Conservative Political Action Conference, better known as CPAC, kicked off yesterday with Trump supporters in attendance to hear conversations with Vice President J.D. Vance, Elon Musk, and others about the next 4 years of the Trump administration. John Stolness with a recap from Washington.
Musk, appearing on stage with sunglasses and a baseball cap, began his remarks brandishing a chainsaw given to him by the conservative president of Argentina.
This is the chainsaw for bureaucracy.
As the head of the president's Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, Musk defended the work his team is doing and says an estimated 10% of all government spending is fraudulent.
If the fraud's only 10% of $7 trillion, you've got $700 billion of fraud. And by the way, it's like really easy to take advantage of the federal government.
Musk also defended the administration's approach to ending the war in Ukraine, saying the two sides are entrenched with no end in sight unless President Trump intervenes. He countered criticism that he is parroting Russian talking points in favor of President Putin.
People are like sometimes like
to end this war.
Say like, you know, I'm a bought asset of Putin. Yeah. I'm like, he can't afford me.
Vice President Vance sat down for a Q&A as well, elaborating on comments made over the weekend to European allies in which he blasted them over free speech restrictions in their countries.
Germany's entire defense is subsidized by the American taxpayer. There are thousands upon thousands of American troops in Germany today. Do you think that the American taxpayer is going to stand for that if you get thrown in jail in Germany for posting a mean tweet? Of course they're not.
Vance also spoke about the Ukraine war and defended the president's approach.
They say, why are you talking to Russia? Well, how are you going to end the war unless you're talking to Russia? You've got to talk to everybody involved in the fighting if you actually want to bring the conflict to a close. And I know the president does.
Other speakers yesterday included Attorney General Pam Bondi and former Trump senior advisor Steve Bannon, who was openly pining for an unconstitutional third term for Donald Trump in the White House.
We want Trump in 28. That's what they can't stand. A man like Trump comes along only once or twice in a country's history, right? We want Trump.
Later this weekend, the president will deliver the keynote speech at CPAC. The conference runs through Saturday. John Stolness, Washington.
The debate over school choice is ramping up in Texas. School vouchers a top priority for Republican lawmakers there, including Governor Greg Abbott. Vouchers essentially are state money given to families to send their kids to private school.
Texas truly is the biggest and boldest state
And yet, now is the first time ever in the history of our great state that we've had a Speaker of the Texas House of Representatives raise his hand and say, yes, we will pass school choice in the state of Texas.
Under House Bill 3, the state would distribute funds through state-managed education savings accounts or school vouchers. Most participating students would get 85% of the amount public schools get for each student through state and local funding. The House, under the leadership of Speaker Dustin Burrows, plans to put $1 billion toward the program. Any child eligible to attend or already attending a public school could apply. Now, critics say they like options for families.
But what I'm not for is giving away our precious taxpayer dollars to unaccountable private schools that can discriminate.
Texas Democrat State Rep James Tallarico.
I like competition, but only if it's fair. Private schools don't have to take the same test, don't have to follow the same rules, don't have to accept the same students.
The Texas Senate already passed its version of school choice, but in years past, it's been the House where the legislation dies. An unusual scene over prisons in one American state this week. We'll tell you what that was all about when America in the Morning returns after these messages. Unusual scenes played out in a number of prisons across New York State as National Guard helicopters swooped in, bringing troops to help shore up security. This comes as correction officers at New York prisons continue to strike over safety and working conditions. Correspondent Bob Brown has the latest.
The National Guard being brought in on the order of New York Governor Kathy Hochul at the more than 30 state prisons where correctional officers are staging what she says is a wildcat strike, which is illegal under the Taylor law, which prohibits state employees from striking. Yes, they say pay is an issue, but also they say the 24-hour shifts and worker safety with the increasing violence has become unbearable. Roy Halla, a retired correctional officer with more than 30 years on the job, joining strikers outside Attica Prison, telling WGRZ-TV in Buffalo he had to make a choice.
Didn't want to do it anymore. I mean, I just want to see my family.
He says the day-to-day fear of not knowing what will come next is gut-wrenching.
I was sent pictures today of what happened at Mohawk Correctional Facility. I mean, there was a sergeant who was sliced from ear to ear.
The scar across his head.
That's where he was sliced today. That happened this morning at Mohawk Correctional Facility. That's the stuff that people don't hear every day.
Correctional officers also say they want to see rollbacks of prison reforms, such as the HALT Act, which minimizes the use of solitary confinement. Bob Brown, New York.
The Trump administration is watching events in Israel after 3 buses exploded, an act blamed on terrorists, and comes as one of the bodies returned by Hamas was not the person it was supposed to be. There was outrage by the Israeli government when it was determined that Shiri Bibas, the mother of 2 children also taken hostage by Hamas, was not returned with her young kids as promised. Forensic evidence released by Israel shows the 4-month-old and 4-year-old children were murdered about a month into their captivity. Hamas paraded the coffins of the 4 Israelis through the streets, an act the United Nations called abhorrent. The return of the random and unknown body violates the fragile ceasefire between Israel and Hamas, and it's not clear how Israel plans to respond. Concerns over tariffs threatened to be enacted by President Trump are having an effect south of the border, as Mexico's tequila makers are wary of the costs. Correspondent Haya Panjwani reports.
In 2023, the U.S. imported $4.6 billion worth of tequila and $108 million worth of mezcal from Mexico. Analysts say President Donald Trump's wider tariff threat could trigger a recession in Mexico. Diego Milan, the owner of premium craft brand Cocula, says the U.S. is its biggest customer. He says, without any doubt, our biggest client base is the United States. Although we are building a global brand, the United States consumes over 85% of the industry's production of 100% agave tequila because of its origin denomination. And Efrain Velazquez, a small farmer, adds that any new tariffs will pose a challenge for Mexican farmers. He says, I believe that if tariffs come into place, the prices will rise, and they will stop a lot of small farmers that are aiming to grow. I'm Haya Panjwani.
A judge has denied Idaho College murders suspect Brian Kohberger's motions to suppress key evidence collected during search warrants. Kohberger's defense team brought up 2 DNA samples from unidentified males at the King Road home, where he's accused of killing 4 University of Idaho undergrads. It's all part of their efforts to have his arrest warrants thrown out. Kohberger was studying for a PhD in criminology and criminal justice at Washington State University at the time of the murders. The murder scene is only 10 miles away from where Kohberger was studying. The judge's ruling will allow for cell phone and email records, also surveillance footage, and Kohberger's past Amazon purchases, also DNA evidence to be used in trial. The FTC released a request for comment from social media users to see if they feel they've been censored online. Here's Chuck Palm with today's tech news.
The Federal Trade Commission announced yesterday it will launch a public inquiry into censorship by tech platforms. FTC Chairman Andrew Ferguson said in a statement, tech firms should not be bullying their users, and this inquiry will help the FTC better understand how these firms may have violated the law by silencing and intimidating Americans for speaking their minds. The FTC also alleges these policies can sometimes cause online creators to lose access to their accounts with no appeals process, and it could be deemed anti-competitive. Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act protects online platforms from being held liable for illegal content that is posted by individuals. But in recent years, the Supreme Court has heard cases challenging this legislation. On Wednesday, President Trump signed an executive order that makes independent regulators like the SEC and FTC directly accountable to the White House, which could impact the inquiry, but experts have questions about the constitutionality of that decree. For more, follow me on X @ChuckPalm.
Robert Workman has sports.
Hockey's Four Nations Face-Off Championship final went to overtime in Boston before Canada nipped the U.S. 3-2 on Connor McDavid's goal.
Just couldn't believe it, really. Just excited for our group. Honestly, everybody was so dug in.
The game was a dandy from start to finish, but disappointing for Brady Tkachuk.
This sucks. I thought this team deserved more. And this has been my favorite hockey memories, just playing for this team.
The NHL regular season resumes tomorrow. NBA, the Cavaliers cut down the Nets 110-97. The team with the best record in the association has won 5 in a row. Nuggets won their 9th straight, beating the Hornets, and the Spurs slashed the Suns. San Antonio will be without Victor Wembanyama for the rest of the season after a blood clot was discovered in the 7'4" French star's right shoulder. The reigning Rookie of the Year and first-time All-Star is expected to be a go for next season. At soccer's She Believes Cup in Houston, the U.S. blanked Colombia 2-0. Ali Sentner scored her first international goal just 3 days after her 21st birthday. And a sure sign of spring training. Anyway, the Cubs drubbed the Dodgers 12-4 in the first Cactus League game in Arizona. The first home run of 2025 hit by Chicago's Gage Workman. No relation. Another first, Cubs pitcher Cody Poteet became the first to challenge a ball strike call in the first inning under the new automated system. The call was indeed reversed. That's Friday Sports.
Spring training is underway, and we're getting a glimpse of the future of umpiring. What exactly could that look like in the future? We'll take a peek when America in the Morning returns after this. As spring training gets underway in Florida and in Arizona, baseball fans are set to get a glimpse at the future of umpiring in the major leagues during the exhibition games in March. Correspondent Gethin Kulba reports.
A computerized system that calls balls and strikes is being tested during Major League Baseball spring training exhibition games starting Thursday after 4 years of experiments in the minor leagues. Baseball Commissioner Rob Manfred is an advocate of the automated ball strike system, which could be used to aid MLB home plate umpires but not replace them as early as 2026. Starting in 2024, MLB focused testing on a challenge system in which the human umpire makes each original final call. Data from the spring training test could cause MLB to make alterations to the system for AAA games this season. I'm Gethin Coolbaugh.
Although overall unemployment numbers remain low, Thursday's report gave Wall Street some concern over what would happen in the months ahead. Correspondent Ed Donahue reports.
Slightly more people applied for unemployment benefits last week. The numbers from the Labor Department show layoffs remain in the same recent healthy range. Weekly applications for benefits are considered a proxy for layoffs. Some analysts are expecting layoffs ordered by the Department of Government Efficiency will show up in the report in the next few weeks. While layoffs remain low by historical standards, some high-profile companies, including Starbucks and Southwest Airlines, have already announced job cuts this year. Ed Donahue, Washington.
A new movie hits theaters this weekend, a Stephen King short story thriller. Kevin Carr has a sneak peek at The Monkey.
An iconic Stephen King story from the 80s is getting a feature film adaptation.
You wouldn't happen to remember if my aunt had a wind-up toy monkey at the yard sale?
Longlegs director Osgood Perkins turns the key on The Monkey, which follows a pair of twins who discover a clockwork monkey in their absent father's closet. Soon they discover it has the ability to kill people at random.
When I was a kid, my twin brother and I found something that loved to kill.
For those familiar with the original short story, you'll recognize the setup as the first half of the film, which covers that pretty closely.
But it had other plans.
However, Perkins winds the tension tight enough to send the story off the rails in the best of ways in the second half.
It must be vanquished. Why don't you vanquish it, huh, Bill?
Pondering the absurdity and senselessness of death, The Monkey delivers some of the most graphic and honestly hysterical kills outside of a Final Destination film.
It's like that restaurant. Spaghetti City.
It's a huge diversion from the director's previous slow-burn thrillers, which shows some range for him.
We have been chosen to witness its power over life and death.
Even as someone like me who's read the original story several times, I was mesmerized by the audacious and graphic nature of the movie, which delivers a shock-filled, bloody good time.
It's evil. It's basically the devil.
The Monkey gets 4 organ grinder vests out of 5. I'm Kevin Carr, and that's the way I see it.
America in the Morning for Friday, February 21st, 2025 is produced by Jeff McKay. I'm Clayton Neville in for John Trout, and this is Westwood One.